I'm here in Taghmon, and who do I have in front of me at all?
Catherine Codd.
Catherine Codd. And today is the first day of spring.
Yes, it is first day of spring. And lovely day, lovely. I love the baby lambs and all that. That's the springtime for me, when you see the lambs and the calves and all that. Like, so it's lovely in the countryside. But yeah, first day of spring.
And we've come through an unusual 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. If you would have said like 10 years ago that we were going to be masked up and we couldn't go 5 kilometres outside and you couldn't go into a shop or a restaurant without having a piece of paper, we'd looked at you like, it'd have been very strange. But yeah, unfortunately that happened, and the first, I think it was very scary, but I think then people started to calm down and think, I think the government and everything got it in hand, and got people vaccinated, and I think from a little country we're doing as good as a lot of other countries with people vaccinated and doing the right thing and keeping people safe. It came on as very quick, I think, didn't it? Like in February, it started to affect me in February of 2020, because I was on treatment for the cancer had returned, so I was on the treatment, and how it affected me was I was in the oncology ward, or the oncology unit in Wexford, and my oncologist felt, because other people could walk in, that it wasn't safe. So I had to stop for 2 months. She said she found somewhere safe to go and get my bloods done and all like that. So it affected me in a sense with the treatment. But that was done then. They had it organised, I'd say, within 2 months then, and we went to, I'm back now in Eli, but we went to Waterford for a little while, so I get it done now. But so it affected in that sense, that if I got it, which I did in February 21, it meant I had to stop my treatment for a little while.
And think back to that February 2 years ago. Do you remember when all that was announced? What? The first lockdown? It
was very scary, because you kind of, like, you weren't supposed to go out, all the things that were happening, and at that time too it was very scary because we didn't know what was happening, and then all of a sudden the deaths started to happen, especially in the elderly, and now people were getting sick, and it was really shocking first, because I think it was the unknowns, like everything. We didn't know what was going on, we didn't know yet what was causing it, if keeping apart from each other, and because we hadn't got really to the masks yet, and the distance and all the things later on that we learned, if you keep that, at least that could give you some protection. It was something unknown, you couldn't see it, and it was attacking people, you didn't know who it was going to attack, so it was very, very, very scary that time, because we had no idea, and you were hearing stories from China, and they had on news of people in different areas, and it was knocking people down the street, how many people had died, so it was really, really scary for a while, until people start talking about it, and the HSE start setting up then and tell you how and what's going on, at least let you know, because I think it's like, if you don't know what it is, and they said you can't see it, you don't know what's going to happen. I'd say my mum and the elderly were very nervous at that time, because it seemed to be at that stage. I started to be like, often got food delivered and stuff like that, and I really had to kind of be very careful, because I was said to mind yourself and not to get, so it was like not be going out, don't be mingling, which is very hard for me because I'm very social, but you really on that sense, not to be putting yourself in places wearing the mask. I think I was even wearing the mask more so than when they made it obligatory, because if you're out and about you don't know who's beside you, and it was really, because I thought now, and it was the fear too, how would it affect me, and if you didn't know how sick you'd get. I was already tired, and this was also hard because I was still dealing with just finding out about the cancer, so I was angry, because as I said to Mum, I felt, as I said, it's like fatigue. I felt as tired as if I had been working the 13-hour shifts when I was heavily pregnant with Aaron up in Dublin. I said, I'm more tired now, and it's upsetting me because I know I haven't done anything. So I used to fight it, and then I'd get really sick, or the body'd say, you're going to sit down now because you're so tired, we're not moving any further. So it was all that, and then the pandemic right in the middle of that, where you had the fear, you couldn't go out. So it was actually very hard for first few months, until I realised and kind of got my head around, as I said, now I need to fit a nap in during the day and rest, because if I try and go the whole day I would just get too tired. So it was really scary that time, very scary.
And do you remember even when someone would be dropping around food to the house, how did that play out? Would you let them inside to the kitchen? Did you leave it at the front door?
Well, normally when they came around and dropped up, I got the food delivered up, my son would open the door and just drop the box inside the door, and then he'd pick it up and bring it into the kitchen. And it got very like, you didn't understand, you knew you had to do it, but it was very kind of unnatural, like, you know, someone's coming to your door and you're backing away. But I know if you're talking to certain people too, you might forget sometimes and they'd start backing away from you. You know, because if you're up too close. But that was very strange. And even the tablets were dropped up to your door, and I'm thinking, like, you know, the chemist is only down the road. You get up and walk down, like somebody knocking on the door, dropping. They were very good. That's what I have to say. Taghmon was brilliant, because the chemist, I think it was Tuesdays and Thursday deliveries. The girls dropped up with the trolley. The chemist, Bridget, drops up the tablets. So it was absolutely brilliant. Even more so when I got the actual COVID. Like, Aaron wasn't responsibility. I just rang and everything was dropped up for me, so I had everything at my hand. There was no problem. Like, so it was brilliant. Really, I have to say they were very good here.
So if I was to think back from, say, March to the summer, things loosened up a little bit at June. Like, what was your life like for those couple of months first?
Well, still again, you had to be very wary, but I was trying to kind of be out a bit too for my son. Like, you know, you have to kind of be doing stuff a little bit too. You can't be locking yourself up, but like, you know. So we went out a bit. We were very careful and very aware of where we were going, and you weren't, you know, putting yourself in. I was trying not to go to places that would be too crowded and stuff. So, you know, we went out a little bit anyway. I think that eased up a bit, so we were hoping against hope, foolishly, that, you know, there wouldn't be another wave. And sure, then the second wave came on us before, but just even the relaxation was quiet, because I think I remember in the first they didn't kind of want you out, and then they said, well, you can go 5 kilometres. I think you actually, and I did too, you start to see things around you and realise how precious things are, that you can't just drop into Wexford, that you can't, that all of a sudden this area, and I think we did, and myself especially, you know things around you more, because I think when I came down, I slowed down a bit, but up in Dublin, it's fast, fast, fast. You don't stop and look at, as I said, the roses, or you don't. Where here, like, going out for walks was lovely. Just going out on the day and knowing that you know, that it was a nice day and it was lovely weather, and you noticed it. So definitely you did. You slow down a bit and you notice things around you. And I think we all appreciate, like, you can go out for a walk, or you can go, you know, because we were hearing on the news at that time, there was places like Italy and places where you, unless twice a week for food and you couldn't go outside the apartment, like outside the door, never mind walk outside, like, so we could at least, you know, you could walk out if you're out in the country, walk the fields, you know, if you're near a park, like, you could go and really just, and I have to say Wexford is beautiful, so even if you're just going out for a walk, and it seemed that year too that everything was growing more. And I think in the last couple of years, and maybe the change of the weather, there was a lot more flowers early on. Everything was so, you know, everything was blooming. So it was really nice when you'd be out, like, you'd see all the...
Yeah. And do you think as well that part of that could be the fact that we weren't driving as much and we were walking, and we were noticing more?
Oh yeah. Because I even said to my mum the other day, like, you see people have got back now and they're walking more as families. Well, better, I said that to them, especially in the countryside, you'd notice the older gentleman. We have a couple up the road, like, and like, he's a farmer, and as I said, like, the younger people walk, but my dad's a farmer when I was a kid. Like, the only walk he'd be doing is across the field. He wouldn't, like, he'd be out walking with his wife with the dog. He wouldn't go for a walk with the dog, like. But now they're doing that, they're walking together. But that time, no, you don't need time. So it's even lovely to see that people are taking time now, and they're even doing it even when it's easing off. You see families out, and I think especially the families, it was a big thing. They went out for a walk, or even went out on the bike, because you weren't going anywhere. So on Sundays they all went out together. So I think it made a great difference in that sense, and people are still continuing to go out walking, and you see people, and I think, as you said, then people are stopping and looking around, and I think really seeing what a lovely countryside and place we have. You know, the flowers, everything, and and it seemed to fall the same thing. The weather seemed to be getting a bit better. We're not getting like this, we had mild winters and all like that, so there were still days where you could go out. And it would be like, even yesterday, it might have been a bit cold, but the day was lovely to go for a lovely walk or go for a cycle, like, you know. where normally you might have snow or it'd be very wet and people wouldn't be. So it did make a big difference that way. Well, I think it would have been a lot bleaker if we were, like, especially when January of 2021, because we do Christmas delays out, and then for the 4 weeks, I think I said it should just before Christmas, and the numbers went crazy. And I think if you had gone into where there was snow and you couldn't go outside the door and all like that, I think people would have gone mad. Like, you know, it just, you know, and you'd be fearing like, oh God, I can't get to the shop and I can't do, because I said I always laugh in Ireland when there's snow around, it's the bread and the milk. Can we get to the bread and milk? If all else fails, like, can we get some food, like, you know, but no.
And here we are now, we're only a couple of weeks away from where I suppose restrictions were lifted a good bit, and there's a real sense of normality again, whatever normality is. But how can you even reflect on the last 2 years? Can you remember? Are there any?
Well, I think it's the fact that the panic is gone. I think for the first year and a half, that was the real thing. It was the panic. It was like the fear of what was going to happen. I think once the vaccine came and all like that, and we kind of knew what was happening, and even this one, even then when we found out it was contagious, but it wasn't as viral, or it wasn't as the Delta one. Like, I think now we know we can survive, we can get on. Some good things have come out of it. I think the hand washing and the distance is not a bad thing to do. But you know, it's even with the children now, on my son, like, and in the schools, like, it's showing them what can. So I think when it all eases off now, the appreciation will be there, and it's definitely, we know we've got the vaccines, we're as good as any other country in getting vaccines in, people are getting, you know, so I think it's that whole thing you've seen from going from a real fear, the first 2 waves, and then to, okay, with the government can cope, you can stay at home, get the payment. And actually it's funny now, it's opposite, because I talked to my sister who's a librarian, and she said first of all, when people were made stay at home, there's a big panic. Now a lot of people who've been working from home for 2 years, the fact that they have to go back to the office for 5 days, it's kind of gone the other way. But I think for us, it's that we can deal, as a small country, we can deal with anything. That we're able, we got through the fear, we got through everything, and we got the other side, and I think we can, that you can see, if you look back, it is kind of crazy that in 2 years that amount can happen, from the fear, the waves, then the vaccine came out, the calm and came down, and now the people can go back to work. Because even for my mum, like, the fact was, when was it going to end? I know we're still going to have it, but it's only 2 years, and it's really gone to the other side, you know, where we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that 2 years was quite, and as you said, like, if we had been doing this and we were still in the middle of it, it's not the same as we're now on the other side. So you can talk about the wave and all like that, and then that we're coming out the other side, and people now are starting to think we're going to get to the side. We might still maybe mask for a little while, and maybe the certificate to other countries and stuff, but we are definitely going back to being able to go to matches and do what we did before.
We discovered new ways to work.
It did, and it actually, I think it kind of, the way of working from home and working, and I think it gave a lot of, I think it opened it for people, say, like my sister-in-law, my brother works in the hospital, and she works, like, they have 2 small children now, a 4-year-old, and we have a little baby Conan, and he's only 13 weeks, and like that she can work from home now, because a lot of them with the computers, like there's my sister, they have the computers from work, so they can do all the work at home. They can ring emails, they're doing Zoom calls and Zoom meetings and all like that, so they can do all that. So it, like, for a lot of women, I don't know about men, but a lot of women, it's like you can have the few days at home and work as well. So if you want them to do, as she said, you can do 3 days 1 week and 2, so that gives you time up, especially if children or other things. It really makes the big difference. And if you have small children like my sister-in-law, it allows you to kind of be more flexible. It's not, and even my sister now who's over in England, she's PA, it's not all just 5 days a week, you can come in at different times, you have flexi times, you can work with somebody where they're in the office and you're at home, and you can talk. So I think it's a real good thing that way. I'd say they're probably doing that in America and other countries for a long time, but I think Ireland now has learned the flexi hours and all that. It's very good for the employees especially, you know.
Everyone learned how to use Zoom all of a sudden.
Oh yeah. Even my mum, everybody, because we were doing it at Christmas time, the 2020, when the sisters didn't come home and over in England and stuff like that, and up in Dublin, we did a Zoom on Christmas Day, and like you're sitting there and everyone have their glass of wine and you're all having the chat. And as I said, even the difference, the difference would be with our family, with Trailock, who's 4. Like everyone would have got a hold of him within, say, a month or two, when he would have been held by every cousin. And now Conan, like, we haven't been up, he's how many, 4 weeks, so we haven't had a chance. All we're seeing him now is on WhatsApp, and Nick or Sinead will be holding him in their arms, and that's the only way we've seen the baby, through pictures. So that even was a big thing for us, because we're a very huggy family. We're also like, we would have been all up to the house to see the baby, or up to Dublin to see the baby, so even that's a big thing. But I do think, yeah, we've all got, even like we were learning, we're doing an IT here, and like Ellie and all, we're learning how to use Zoom, how to get into the WhatsApps and get all that thing, the technology. So that's really become a big thing now and I think it's great for mum, because if people are away, or if you've got people in other countries, like it's great because the Zoom's like you're nearly in the same room, because you can have that thing of the one-on-one, like, you know.
The internet has just been the lifesaver really in so much of this.
Well, it is, because I remember listening to, I think it was, she lived out in the country, and she was either a reporter or something as well, and she remember she did something like she had to hang something out on a tree out in the back garden in order to get there, right? Because even the fact that my mum now lives out in Dungear, which is about 2 miles out, that the fiber's going out there now, because as I said, I talked to my niece and nephews, like when we were young, we called the 2-channel telly, because we lived down in the valley. So even though we had aerials, it was too fuzzy, so you couldn't get the channels, you know, and things like that. So now to be mum, even like you're out there and you have got the good Wi-Fi, and you know, and having the fibre comes in. And it's great, because you said rural people, and everything is done through computer, everything is done through Zoom, so you don't want to be in the middle of an email or in the middle of something and the whole thing goes down on you. So it is great now that we're getting that it's reaching out, you know.
Did you have anyone close to you, or did you know anyone who passed away?
We did. We'd have neighbours and people, and that was very hard, because, you know, you couldn't go in, and you know, my mum found it very hard, because it was like, you know, you couldn't sit. You were used to sitting in the church, going up and shaking hands, and then going to the graveside. Like, and it was a real. And I think mum even found the thing of, for us in the countryside, it's the wake thing. You go to the house, you sit down, have your cup of tea, and you have the great chat, and you go over, like, even remember hearing stories about Dad we wouldn't have heard when Dad died. Like, so it was like, you know, it's all that, and it was very hard, because that's a real country thing. You go to the house and you're thinking, should I go to the house? They say it's private, but I'm a neighbour, like mum really more than us than that. Like, should I still drop down and knock in? Or, you know, they say it's private, but I think that's, you don't want everybody, but I've known, say, you know, for how many years should I drop in? And that was the big thing. You didn't know whether you should or shouldn't go, and that was very hard, because here, like, being around people and having the huge big, you know, you get the marquee out and a cup of tea, and that was very difficult. Yeah. And I think the only time mad this time again was they started there at Christmas time, where they had taken in our church, they had taken the, you know, the piece of thing off of where they cordoned off, and you could, and then all of a sudden, just for a bit of time before they decided to take everything down, they had started putting them back on. So Ma got really worried about that, thinking what's happening now, because to start cordoning things off again and wiping places down and where you were sitting, and even sometimes you didn't know people. People are walking by with masks on, and you didn't recognise the neighbour. And I think it's like, not a mortal sin, but in the countryside, like, it's like, oh, herself there, she didn't even say hello to me, she must be, you know, it's like a thing if you don't say hello to people, and even put their hand up. That's kind of a gesture here, because Aaron, when he came down first, man, why are people? I said, that's good, if you meet someone on the road, you just do that, like, that's, even if you know or whatever, it's a country thing, and it's the way you do it. But I think that was hard. Like, I would meet someone, and I'd say, oh God, that was Mary, so and I never even say hello, did she? And then you'd find out there, oh, it's alright, I didn't recognise you either, so you'd be okay, like, I didn't see you either, so it was okay. But that was the thing too. But yeah, the funerals was a big thing. I think in the countryside, that was the hard thing for, especially Ma's generation, maybe our generation. And what I found is, a friend of mine, her father had passed away, her mother had passed away the same year as my dad, and I had actually gone up to Cavan to her. So I found it hard, being too tired actually with the travelling as well, but also the fact with the COVID and trying to go up, and I wasn't even able just to go up and kind of just be there for her, like, you know, just, you know, we've gone to the graveside and be, but no, that's a big thing, especially in the countryside for that, because, you know, we would have had neighbours, and a good few people have passed now. Mum's age group now would have passed now, I'd say in the last 2 years we lost a good few people, like, so it would have been very hard, like, you know, that was a big thing.
One of the things I suppose was really strong was the handshake.
Oh yeah.
The power in holding someone's hand.
It is, your hand and you grip, they always did that, and that was the big thing. Even the funeral itself and in the mass, but walking up in the graveyard and walking up and giving that handshake, or if there's what we give a hug, but you always caught the hand, and it was that kind of, I'm here, I'm supporting you and holding on, and you'd even find sometimes they'd grip onto you, and that was a big thing, a big major thing in the countryside for people to show that we're here for you, and that was, especially the men, because it wouldn't be a hug like my father-in-law, it'd be like, you know, that strong handshake saying, I'm here for you, you know, I'm really sorry, and it's a real thing. And even not knowing should you do that, because you're not meant to touch, and you can't really go and elbow somebody like that when they're after somebody's dying, so you don't know what do you do, when do you go over, just put your hand on their shoulder, you're not really meant to touch, but you feel you need to give some sort of solace to the person, even by just putting your hand on their shoulder, like, no, look, I'm here, I'm, you know. So, you know, no, it was very, very hard that time, like.
Webcams were starting to be installed in the churches, so people could attend the funerals virtually.
Oh yeah, and that was great for Mum, and especially with some funerals, because Father Robert there, he would put it up on, he was very into the thing, so he would put the camera up on a stand on the top, so you could actually see the mass, which was brilliant, like for my mum and all, so she could actually watch masses and stuff. And my brother Paul and Shelley Croston obviously got her into the stream, so she could see him and the mass. So if she wasn't going, then she felt, you know, this was great, like she could actually still be going to carry the masses, like, so that was very good. And it was great for, exactly, it was like, and you had priests who wouldn't have been young priests, like my friend Sandra up in Dublin, like they have a priest on Thomas Street, and like he wouldn't be, and like yet he was doing from that lovely church, doing the Saturday masses and all, he was doing all that streaming and all, like, so churches where you normally wouldn't see, you know, they were streaming, which was great, like, cause so people could still be going without, you know.
Yeah, that was important for people, wasn't it?
Well, it is, because my mum, especially I think for younger people, but especially I think for my mum's age group, mass was such a big thing, that like not being able to get to mass and not having the masses, like mum goes to the weekly masses as well as the evening mass, and she said that when people were, like one church wasn't say going, they'd come over somewhere else like to go to mass, because morning masses was a big thing for them, like, you know, she used to go when she dropped us off to school, she'd go into the mass like in the morning, so that was always, you know, that side of it. And we even do, if family members are going for a test or something, I will go and light a candle, or if someone is not well, I go light a candle and say a few prayers. So it is a big thing that you still can feel serenity and you can feel comfortable in a church. And I said we're very lucky, we have Taghmon and we have Carrying with some very old and lovely churches. There was a lot of, like, guard of honours as you call it, people would stand out, and the hearse would make a point of, say, Christy, who died recently, if they go up Stream Street or wherever, they'd go around, so everyone, and you'd have them outside the shop, you'd like it have the whole way around, so it was beautiful. Or they'd walk, they'd be at the graveyard, but they'd be standing distance away, but yet they'd be standing there when the hearse goes in, so it was really like you were still given honour, but you couldn't go up close, but still you were there to, you know, and so it was great. It was always, people were honoured that way, that you'd have the standing, that they'd walk around and people would stand outside the shops or just stand outside your house, and you'd just do a little, as I said, you know, bless yourself as you're walking by, so they're still kind of giving that person the honour of, which was, I think, was lovely, like it was still, you know.
That's very deep and very important, you know. Yeah.
Well, it is, because it's the person's last, like they're leaving and they're going, so it's their last one, so it's like saying goodbye, and it's because I've heard, like, you know, in England and places where 2 weeks and paperwork, I still think in the countryside, and I hope we don't lose it to an extent, it probably will as generations, but because even that, people say, well, oh, you have the few drinks in the wake, but it's not. It's talking about the person. It's talking about the stories, especially for the families. It's remembering, and it's just for neighbours and people just to say goodbye in a proper way of chatting about them and kind of giving them, not a party's the wrong word, but giving them a proper send-off before. It's a lot less now. I remember when my grandfather died, I would have been 11, so there was maybe a few drinks at that time. It's a little bit more now with the tea and the biscuits and the cake. There's less less of the few drinks. But still, you know, it's that sort of send-off, and I think it's lovely for that person to have the send-off. I think, like, if you just depart, you die and then you're buried and whatever. No, I think it's nice to have the 3 days for neighbours to pop in and just talk about the person. And we seem to be able, we kind of worked out ways very quickly. When things were said, okay, the government said you can't do that, that and that, we were able to work around ways where you could still, like, say, standing outside the house, we could still show our respect, and we were still within the guidelines of not breaking any of the rules. So I think we worked that very well, and people were very good. As I said, of the families, like, people are very good. They listened and they, you know, they did what were asked, and like, so everything was, you know, it was really done well, you know.
And do you remember even thinking back, because it's like a lifetime away.
It is.
From now to today, it feels like a
But
lifetime.
it even feels you kind of forgot, oh, gee, what happened in 2019? What happened before? Like, you forget, but like, what happened before the masks were wearing? Because you're so used to wearing the masks in the shop now. What happened before you go in and you do your hands and stuff like that? And I noticed now even in the shops down below, people still stay the distance a bit. They don't necessarily stand on the thing, but even in the shop still, they haven't thought, oh God, I can walk up behind that person. You know, they're still doing their distance. So we're still in that mind. But you kind of forget when you just used to walk into the shops and you'd be put until, oh, come on, will you hurry up? And you wouldn't be trying to avoid someone, oh God, somebody's walking down there, I better walk the other way. And I think we've kind of forgot that you do, you know, or even now I still go to take the cert out, forgetting that you don't need cert now if I'm going in to sit down in restaurants, or, you know, things like that. You nearly forgot, even though it's only 2 years, you nearly forgot before all this was, you know. I'm nearly now, when Aaron goes to school, you have your mask, and he'll pull it up before you go in. So it's that sort of, yeah, it's kind of strange now. You think it's only 2 years ago, but you nearly think, what was it like before all this happened, like, you know. I remember getting into a lift. This was one when I was going for one of the treatments, and you could have two in the lift going up in the oncology, and I remember getting in and stepping away, and I watched the man's face. He was saying about in his age face, and I said, oh no, sorry. I said, it's only the distant thing. And like this one, it started first. You go, oh, because he really thought, God, she's after hopping away from me. Have I got something or something? And you had to kind of explain, no, it just shows there they want us not to stand beside each other. And he was okay then, but just his face for that 2 minutes, like if you walk up and somebody's stepping away from you, and thinking, oh God, have I had an accident or something gone wrong, like, you know. But it was very hard because, you know.
Do you think we'll need a little bit of a reconditioning to get out of that mindset?
I think it will, because what I found too was there was two kind of teachers during this. There was people who thought the mask and all are not really making a difference anyway, and they had that sort of thing. And then you would have people who were thinking, hang on a second, like about 3 weeks ago you were saying we need to be doing A and C, B and C. Now everything is lifted. How could have in 3 weeks? So they're still going to be you'll have that group are very nervous. Hang on a second, how can it be gone now? I want to still wear my mask. I want to still, you know, don't want to enter a room or be sitting close to each other. So I think there'll be certain people it will take a long time to convince them that it's okay, that we're safe enough, that you can go back to being the way we were before. So it will. For some people, it obviously will have the point because some people lost people through it. So it's going to have a major for them. And for them to go to the other side and go back to it before, it will be, because it's not like the person died of cancer or died of old age. This was something that came in and they were gone. So I think for some people it will be very hard to get to the other, I think. But, you know.
Do you remember actually that hope when the vaccines were first announced?
Yeah.
What did you feel at all?
I think because I was a little too, but then I kind of, first of all, I say, well, God, that was very quick. But then I remember reading somewhere, and I remember I had a few people on that line, like, that can't be, because how it took, you'd hear things over, it took how long to get the cure for polio, it took how long. And then, like, I read things up and said, well, no, they went ahead, there was a lot more, they zoned in especially on it, where during polio they wouldn't have just been focused, but this was worldwide, so you had all the people from the different countries, and they all working together. So when I saw that, I said, that's it. But then you see, we thought it was going to stop it. Because I remember telling a friend, I said, no, it's not. What do you mean? I said, no, the nurse was talking to me, a very nice nurse, because I was sent by my oncology ward, and she said, no, it just to stop you from going to hospital. You can still get it and spread it. And my friend is like, well, what's the point in that? You know, that's an Irish thing. What's the point in that? It stop you, you know, in hospital and being on in you know, ventilator. But but I thought it was supposed to. But no, it was a bit first. But once I got into it, no, and then I got the second one and the booster, and that kind of helped. And I thought, because especially I was at a friend's wedding, and this was when things had eased up a bit, and like, one of her cousins was from Lanzarote, and I'm thinking that's a place that's a real, you know, has a lot of people coming and going, and they hadn't even started on it. They'd only done, like, she was in her 30s and they weren't even where we were with the vaccination. I said, God, my young son who's 16 is already getting the vaccination. So I think in Ireland we really got on top of it, and I was thinking that's a country where a lot of people come and go, and you think that would be one place where you'd be vaccinated, because it would have a big turnover of people in London. She worked over there. So that kind of got me, and I thought that we're doing well. And once I got it, then I thought, no, that's good now. We're getting there. Aaron has got his vaccines now, and they were wearing the masks. I thought the school was fabulous, like, with the fact they separated them, and I felt he was safer there than at home. But no, I thought the vaccines we did very well, and the way we got it in and stuff, like, and we got it going, like.
Interesting, and so just looking behind you, I noticed this partition wasn't here pre-COVID, just posters behind you. That furniture, I suppose, that we've got used to, that's going to change. That'll be gone, hopefully.
Yeah, looking at removing, because I was saying to my sister again in the library about moving the screens. They still have the screens up, but will that all? Because that was like in the shop, even down in Spar. Now, when you're getting stuff, you have to kind of put the bag under the screen, and you're trying to, without knocking things, where you just pop your thing up and not throw the bag at you, but put it out. Now it's all you're kind of like. But I think sometimes you kind of nearly, I don't mean it maybe in restaurants or sometimes, because sometimes they have a habit of putting, like, if there's enough people, you're sitting on top of each other. So I'm not bad against somebody, but I think it's nice to have the screen where you have a bit of space, because you know where they're fitting as many bodies in. So, as I said, I used to laugh at, I'm not a small woman, but sometimes when you move back, you're hitting the back of the chair, and then you're trying to squeeze out to go to the door. At least now you have the room, because the screen is there and you can't sit between people. Like, but even things like that, will they remove? You're so used to walking in, and it's like a guard between you. And I'd say some of the shop people, especially with people coming up and whatever, they'll probably be happy enough to keep it there, you know, keep them safe from, you know, to have that. But it's even all that, like that sort of not sitting close, not sitting up at the bar, having the table service, like not being able to walk up, having to sit, you know, you're not able to walk up and ask, that you have to wait till somebody comes down, going into the restaurant and waiting for somebody to sit you rather than going looking at it and going, should we sit over there? Like, you know, all that is probably, you know, getting back into that. But I think people would be happy, you know. But she said they're thinking they're going to see about moving, you know. But I said it'll probably take a while. Like, it's like everything is not going to be gone today or tomorrow, so that'll be. Yeah, that'll be.
We're so close to it still, we don't want to take that chance or take the faith.
Well, yeah, I think, because even me with the mask, like, I know they said the end of February, but I said I wouldn't have a problem of, well, I know it probably won't be mandatory. I said I'd probably be keeping mine on for a while, but I said, you know, it's no harm having the masks, because even on the fact too, somebody could have colds and flus or something and be in the thing sneezing, and you know what I mean, just to have that protection. Like, but then again, see, I don't mind wearing the mask, even though I'm a bit asthmatic, where some people did. I still have friends who find it very hard when it's on their face all day, like they just don't like the mask. So I suppose they'd be happy enough to throw it off and be gone, like, you know. So depends on where you're coming from, really.
Our hand hygiene improved a lot.
Oh, I thought that was in toilets and coming in and out, and then, no offence, but that was really good. You know, the fact that you have to wash your hands, and like, you know, because you don't want to wear you know, and it's nice that and we got into the habit, and I give it that most people did get in, and I still will do it automatic. Some places they've taken it out and I'm looking for, you know, because you're so used to the mask up and going in, and you know, so you're still looking for that bit of, yes, as I said to Matt, I won't mention about coming out of the toilet and all like that. It is good to have hand hygiene in some places, in restaurants like that, you know. Because we were just the other day, we were just yesterday, and I said that I was walking and I just happened to see somebody walking into the shop and I think, oh God, I haven't got my mask. But it's just for a second, you just remember, like your face feels a bit, and what, I forgot something, and then you realise I forgot my mask. Or getting mask. And you see, people got jobs out of that, because my friend Teresa, a friend of her daughters, actually made personalised masks. And that was her whole thing. Like, she'd do butterflies or whatever you want on it. She did Christmas ones and all like that. So you're thinking of people like that made a business out of the COVID. Not being in a bad way, but they made a business out of the COVID. How is that going to go on that side? Like, you know.
Yeah, do you remember the first summer? Do you remember any? I can't remember myself even. The first summer we had, the summer of 2020. Do you remember that? Did you go anywhere or do anything there?
I don't think we did. Yeah, I think we would have normally gone off. I don't think we actually did that year, because normally we would go somewhere. My sisters and my mum would normally go off and we'd do a weekend thing for the girls. And I can't even, that's the thing, it's terrible, I can't remember 2020. I can't remember now. I think if I even went up to my friend San, because I'd normally go up to her for about a week, because or 2 weeks of all the family live around, so I'd start to move around to different houses but I didn't visit my sisters. I didn't visit people like that, which wouldn't have been usual. I normally go up and I'd see everybody over the thing, and we'd normally go somewhere to Cork or somewhere, like we didn't go abroad, but we'd go somewhere like that. But I remember we definitely didn't do as much. We kind of stayed at home. It was hard that summer, because we weren't going off and doing things, and I remember Aaron wasn't seeing people as much as well, because you didn't want to be in people's houses and stuff, like, because you didn't know what was going on at that time. So yeah, that was I think by the second summer it was a lot better. You just minded yourself, but the first summer was very hard. And I think that was the thing, people didn't know about visiting or going to other countries, so I think it really made an effect on a lot of people's kind of summer, because the minute the school was over, a lot of people, you're gone, but no, it was a big, and it does seem so long ago now, from 2020. You're thinking like this summer it'll only be 2 years, but it just seems so long ago, and such a different space where your headspace and everything was. Definitely much bigger. I think again it's the panic and just the first time and not knowing what you're doing. I think we relaxed by the time we got into the second one. So that summer then we just know, if you take precautions, people were going to Airbnbs and places where they weren't close to anyone and they could cater for themselves. So they weren't in and out to where the first year I think everything stopped because we weren't sure of what. So the Airbnbs did very well, I'd say, and because I remember a friend of mum's was saying that he wouldn't have been around. He didn't want to be in the pubs or in the restaurants and all, because himself and his wife, that were elderly, would found an Airbnb down in Kerry or somewhere, and the catering, it was lovely, and they had a lovely breakaway. As I said, we didn't do it the first summer because we were afraid, we didn't know what was going on. I think even Airbnbs, all of them started to cater more and do stuff like that, so you could do all that. So I think, the first year just was all fear, not knowing what to do. By the time the second summer came in, we kind of got on top of things and people were a bit more of that way. So I think that was it. That's why it was all from that, wasn't it, February, March to June. Like, it just was really, we didn't know what was, and I think at that time we were talking, this is going to go on for whatever, and I think we're saying it's going to go on for not necessarily years, but we're thinking, oh my God, we're only starting it, and it was like, what's going to happen? I think that was the big thing that time. It was really scary for people. Yeah, and I know people say about the government and the politics and all that, but I think for a little country, I think we did pretty good. You're looking at America and England and other places, bigger countries. I know they're more population, but I think the vast majority of people abided. We might have given out and not be happy, but we abided by the rules. We got vaccinated. We did what the government asked us to do. And I think that's why we're in this country now. We're at the other side, is because we followed because there's some countries now back with difficulties because situations where I think for a small country we followed and we got on with things and we just done it. But I think that's Irish people. You just get on and you do it. That's the way we do it. We might give out a bit, but we'll still do it and we'll get on with it. And you know, we come to the other side. And I think it's really of our culture and our people. That's just what we do. You can have a little panic first, but then you think, okay, this needs to be done, so that's what we'll do, and we'll get to the other side of it. So I think that was. So it's very strange, even just looking back over the 2 years, it seems like much longer.